The master of empty threats has officially bent the knee. Alexander Lukashenko is publicly apologizing to Volodymyr Zelenskyy because he is absolutely terrified of Ukrainian drone power. We have a sensational geopolitical drama breaking right now. The self-proclaimed president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, just went on television and delivered a desperate, submissive message straight to Kyiv and begged Ukraine not to turn its weapon systems against Minsk. Why has the aggressive dictator suddenly changed his tune? What happened to his tough guy act? Are we witnessing the final breakup of the world's most toxic dictatorship duo? Let's blast straight into these burning facts. Let's talk about it. Hello, this is Ukraine Today. I'm Tatiana Bogomaz. The dictator's retreat. Alexander Lukashenko breaks arrogance and publicly begs Kyiv for diplomatic forgiveness. In an official statement broadcasted, Lukashenko stated, "If Volodymyr Alexandrovich was offended, I apologize to him. Maybe I already did it." The Belarusian leader explicitly confirmed that his military has absolutely zero intentions of launching any joint actions against Ukraine.
If Volodymyr Alexandrovich was offended, I apologize to him. Maybe I overdid it.
Let's look at the incredible footage that has left political analysts across Europe completely speechless. For over 4 years, Alexander Lukashenko acted like Vladimir Putin's loudest cheerleader, allowing Russian troops to invade Ukraine from his territory and regularly screaming threats at Kyiv. But fast forward to mid-June 2026, and the tough guy has officially left the building. Speaking to the global audience, Lukashenko completely flipped his script. He looked directly into the camera and issued a direct personal apology to President Zelenskyy. This is a massive historic humiliation for the Minsk regime. Lukashenko went on anxiously explain that he only made aggressive comments because he was under pressure, trying to paint himself as an innocent bystander who just wants peace. He went out of his way to emphasize that Belarus will absolutely never send its army across the Ukrainian border. When a dictator who has spent years threatening your capital suddenly switches to polite apologies, you know something massive is happening behind the scenes. And now let's talk about the fire control reality. The commander of Ukraine's unnamed systems forces permanently changes the security calculus for the Belarus regime. Commander Madyar Brovdi to Lukashenko said, "The first 500 targets are already on our pencil. Don't push your luck with Ukraine."
The first 500 targets are already on our pencil. Don't push your luck with Ukraine.
So, why did Lukashenko's bravado completely disappear? Why is he suddenly acting like Zelensky's best friend? The answer can be summed up in one word: Madyar. Just a few weeks ago, the legendary commander of Ukraine's Unmanned Systems Forces, Madyar Brovdi, released a chilling, data-backed warning directly straight at the Minsk elite. Madyar didn't scream or shout, he simply stated a cold, tactical fact. Ukraine has officially finalized a list of 500 high-priority military targets spread out across the entire territory of Belarus. Madyar gave Lukashenko a piece of very practical free advice: do not get in Ukraine's eyes. Lukashenko's own interview proves that this message terrified him. During his public apology today, the dictator explicitly admitted that he knows about that 500 targets. He openly panicked, saying if Ukraine starts attacking Belarus the way it attacks Russia, Belarus will be exposed before the Ukrainian military like an open palm. Lukashenko has been watching our domestic drones obliterate military industrial in Tula, Moscow, and infrastructure in Changar. He knows his aging Soviet-era air defense cannot stop a swarm of 600 Ukrainian strike drones. He knows that if Ukraine activates those 500 coordinates, his oil refineries, his air bases, and his own palace will turn into a massive pile of ash within 24 hours. What we see on this June is the definite, pathetic end of the so-called immortal friendship between Putin and Lukashenko. Lukashenko is a survivor who can smell when a ship is sinking. He has spent the last few weeks watching Ukraine bypass Russia's premier air defenses to blow up strategic missile hubs right next to the Kremlin. He looked at Russia, looked at his own economy, and realized a very simple truth. Putin cannot protect him anymore. Lukashenko remembers his own words from earlier of this war, when he panicked and told his inner circle that he would never allow a Belarusian man to die in Ukraine. Now, with Madyar's 500 targets staring him in the face, he has officially decided to save his own skin. The strategic takeaway from this historic June 2026 escalation is clear. Diplomacy with dictators doesn't work through polite conversations. It works only through the language of absolute force. By scaling up our domestic mid-range drone production and unleashing commanders like Madyar to draw clear red lines, Ukraine has successfully broken the back of the Belarus-Russia military alliance. Lukashenko's public apology is the ultimate proof that Ukraine has the complete tactical initiative. The dictator has chosen survival over Putin's delusions, and the Kremlin is left completely isolated on the northern borders. Sweden is asking to increase the pressure on Russia's shadow fleet. There, they called on other European Union countries to take measures against the vessels of the shadow fleet, which sail in the waters, in order to limit the financing of the Kremlin's military machine. The fight against the shadow fleet has become a top priority in the latest sanctions package. Thus, the Council of the European Union approved new sanctions against Russia the day before. They became intermediate before the adoption of a larger 21st package of restrictive measures.
The Council of the European Union has adopted the so-called mini package of sanctions against Russia, which aims to restrict the operations of the aggressor country's military-industrial complex, as well as its revenues from energy sales, hybrid threats, and the spread of Russian propaganda. In total, the sanctions target 34 individuals and 47 legal entities.
These measures strike at the very heart of Russia's military-industrial complex, its shadow fleet, and the networks that fuel Moscow's hybrid attacks against Europe. At the same time, work is underway on a broader 21st package of sanctions. Each measure narrows Russia's room for maneuver, and the numbers speak for themselves. Western sanctions have already cost Russia, by some estimates, between 1 and 1.3 trillion euros. Brick by brick, we are dismantling the foundation of Russia's war economy. Kaja Kallas, High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, on the website of the European Council.
According to Kaja Kallas, the new 21st package of sanctions will focus on restricting Russian energy, financial services, cryptocurrency, trade, and fisheries. The European Union needs to adopt a new package of sanctions by July 15th, the next date for adjusting the oil price cap. The Swedish government has called on member states to impose restrictions against major Russian oil companies and to expand existing bans.
The export of energy resources is the most important source of revenue used to fuel Russia's aggressive war against Ukraine. Our measures against the Russian energy sector have proven effective. In January 2026, Russia's energy revenues decreased by 50% compared to the same month of the previous year. However, the recent rise in global energy prices means that we need to take even more steps to limit Russian energy exports. From a joint letter by the Swedish Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Swedish Minister of Civil Defense, addressed to Kaja Kallas on social network X.
On June 14th, the British Armed Forces intercepted a Shadow Fleet tanker passing through the English Channel, Prime Minister Keir Starmer reported. After February 2025, the vessel changed its name from Myrtos to Smirtas and its management structure, but the ultimate beneficiaries remain opaque, stated Vladislav Falashchuk, the Ukrainian President's Commissioner for Sanctions Policy. According to him, the vessel was transporting 600,000 barrels of oil per voyage. Attempts to circumvent sanctions in order to finance the illegal war in Ukraine will be met with decisive measures, stated the command of the Royal Navy of the United Kingdom.
There were 25 crew members on board the vessel. They are currently under the care of the National Crime Agency and are undergoing a procedure organized by this agency. It is a great professional honor for me to take part in the first operation in UK history to intercept a vessel from the Russian Shadow Fleet. This is, without a doubt, the result of joint efforts. At the operational level, the operation is led by the Royal Navy.
Every week, about 150 vessels from the Russian Shadow Fleet pass through the Baltic Sea, stated Latvian Prime Minister Andris Kulbergs. EU countries must strengthen cooperation to combat illegal tankers, the head of government emphasized. The precedent of detaining a vessel in the English Channel is a good one, but for such actions to truly impact the revenues of the aggressor country, they need to be scaled up, experts believe.
And why not come up with and implement a unified security regime for the European Union? Since we see that NATO is not functioning for various reasons, in reality, we just need at least a system at this level. President Zelenskyy, all our policymakers and diplomats are saying in unison, friends, this is something we all need. The sooner we win this war, the sooner stability will return, tariffs will go down, and the crises of food and energy accessibility will be resolved. This is beneficial for the competitiveness of the European Union.
The cessation of revenues from the sale of energy resources helps reduce Russia's ability to finance missile and drone attacks on Ukrainian cities, wrote Ukraine's Deputy Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha. He called for increasing pressure and eliminating all possible loopholes. Andriy Dmitrienko for Freedom TV channel.
The artilleryman of the 5th Slobozhan Brigade, SKIF, one of the National Guard of Ukraine, are working on one of the hot areas of the front, Kupiansk. Here, the Ukrainian defenders are not just holding the defense, but also recapturing the lands captured by the Russian troops, including thanks to the coordinated actions of the artillery, which covers the infantry.
Next. Look, this is from the heart.
In this video, a National Guardsman with the call sign Mongol is being initiated as an artilleryman. After a successful shot, his comrades hold an improvised ceremony. From the very first days of the full-scale war, the fighter served in the Honor Guard Battalion under the President of Ukraine and then decided to transfer to the artillery. He still remembers his first shot.
You know, when I fired a cannon for the first time, it just killed my love for small arms. It's a completely different level. Absolutely unique sensations that can't be described in words. It's power. And you realize that you hold such might in your hands that it even becomes frightening. Ready? Fire! Fire!
The serviceman has been defending Ukraine in the Kupiansk direction since the end of 2024. He is a gunner in an artillery crew. He shares that the most important thing when working in position is good camouflage for the gun, since enemy drones are constantly tracking Ukrainian artillery.
Since we fire from concealed positions, we try to camouflage ourselves as much as possible. That is, we completely cover the gun. When firing, the gun is uncovered, and only then does aiming and shooting begin. Mainly, we target infantry, shelters, some fortified enemy positions, and ammunition and fuel depots. Lift it. The weapon is carefully aimed, fully loaded and ready. Now open fire.
A National Guardsman with the call sign Luka is also defending the Kharkiv region. He joined the Scythians in 2024. He has been at combat positions since the summer of 2025, and in civilian life he was an engineer. He learned the artillery system from scratch and now works as a gunner.
It's absolutely not necessary to have any special skills. That's really not required. The main thing is to understand how you can be useful, where you can contribute, and whether you have the necessary qualities for that. That's all. Find your unit.
Artillerymen, despite the rapid technological advancement of the Ukrainian military, remain one of the main components of the defense forces. After all, fire support during the counterattacks of the armed forces of Ukraine is very important.
Artillery can operate more intensively than drones because launching multiple drones at the same time requires many operators. But in artillery, you only need one crew and enough shells. The only advantage of drones is that they allow you to act with surgical precision. We need to adjust our aim first, and then work, but we can cover a larger area with fire and destroy more targets because a shell has more destructive power than a drone.
Mongol and Luka have been taking turns on the front line of combat for over a year. They have dozens of successfully hit enemy targets to their credit, and they are firmly determined to continue defending Ukraine from Russian aggression. Natalia Bilokudra, Andriy Domovi from the Kharkiv region for Freedom TV channel.
The G7 summit in France has officially kicked off with an explosive diplomatic showdown. President Zelenskyy, fully backed by the US and France, has publicly challenged Vladimir Putin to an emergency face-to-face meeting on the sidelines. This high-stakes move was a perfect diplomatic trap designed to force the Kremlin to the table. Moscow responded with a total silence, proving once again to the world that they are terrified of real negotiations. Now the 7G leaders are turning this summit into a unified tribunal to finalize the ultimate punishment for the Kremlin.
The Group of Seven summit in Evian has opened, and the main topic on the agenda is already clear. It's Ukraine. US President Donald Trump has already arrived in France for the leaders' meeting. He held a meeting with French leader Emmanuel Macron and stated that the United States is ready to actively participate in resolving the problem of Russian aggression against Ukraine. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelenskyy is also expected here. Negotiations to end the war with Kremlin leader Vladimir Putin could also have taken place in Evian. Kyiv was ready for such a meeting, but Moscow once again avoided the diplomatic route.
Before the start of the G7 summit, to be honest, we made it clear that we were ready to meet with Putin during the summit, since Trump and Macron, Starmer and Merz would be present there, that is, Europeans plus America. This is I think a very good opportunity for everyone to meet together, and that is precisely why we could have invited the Russian side. Both Europe and the United States agreed, but Russia once again demonstrated that they are not ready to talk about this. Therefore, we must put more and more pressure on Putin until he puts an end to this war.
Pressure also means supporting Ukraine. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz noted that Russia is doing poorly both on the front and in the economy, while Ukraine is in a stronger position today than ever before. And now is the best time for diplomacy.
Today, Ukraine is in a significantly different, much more powerful position. Russia cannot win militarily. Moreover, its economy is in terrible shape. I say this with the utmost caution and restraint, but for the first time, perhaps, a window for diplomacy is gradually opening here. There is an opportunity here as well. As you know, Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron and I discussed this last Sunday in London. We also discussed this in detail with President Zelenskyy, and together we formulated 5 key points which we also intend to discuss in Evian with President Trump. These could be the first steps, although again, everything is hypothetical. These could be the first steps toward a new diplomatic initiative for peace talks between Ukraine, Russia, Europe, and the United States.
Europe is backing up its words of support for Ukraine with real assistance. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced that Kyiv will receive the first tranches from the 90 billion loan as early as this month.
We are looking forward to President Zelenskyy's visit tomorrow. Russia's brutal war of aggression has indeed lasted longer than the First World War. And in the face of escalating attacks, Europe continues to provide Ukraine with unwavering support. Our loan package of 90 billion euros covers 2/3 of Ukraine's financial needs for this year and the next. The first tranches will be delivered later this month and the remaining third next month. We need Ukraine's partners to step up. This will be a topic of discussion at this summit. We are also preparing for the coming winter.
The future of Ukraine in Europe is also on the agenda. The President of the European Council, Antonio Costa, has called for accelerating the expansion of the European Union. However, this issue will be discussed in detail in Brussels in the format of the European Council.
At the next meeting of the European Council, we will discuss issues of enlargement, as there is broad consensus on the need to accelerate this process not only with regard to Ukraine, but also Moldova and the countries of the Western Balkans. We had a very good summit with the countries of the Western Balkans. I think now we need to use this momentum to move forward with enlargement.
The main outcome of the first day of meetings in France is that the Allies are united. Support for Ukraine will continue and pressure on Russia will intensify. Vitaly Sizov, Ruslan Kuzgo from Avian for Freedom TV channel.
Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Ukraine Today, and stay with us. Take care and see ya soon.